Leadership is not about titles, it is not about authority, and it is certainly not about power. True leadership is about influence, about vision, about courage, and about the ability to lift others higher than they could ever go on their own. When people hear the word leader, many imagine a CEO, a president, or someone standing on a stage giving commands. But leadership is not confined to positions. It lives in the choices you make, in the way you carry yourself, and in the way you inspire the people around you. A great leader is not simply born. They are forged in the fire of challenges, shaped by discipline, and defined by how they treat others when no one is watching. And if you want to become one of them, if you want to embody greatness as a leader, you must start by reshaping how you think, how you act, and how you see the world. Think for a moment about the people in history who changed the course of humanity. They were not just managers of tasks. They were visionaries. They were men and women who dared to step out of the ordinary and show the world that a better future was possible. Martin Luther King Jr. did not have wealth or political power, but he had a dream, and his voice became the thunder that shook injustice. Nelson Mandela did not emerge as a leader after decades in comfort, but after decades of imprisonment, where his spirit could have been broken but instead was strengthened. Great leaders are not defined by circumstances. They are defined by their response to them. And you, right now, in this very moment, have the capacity to step onto that same path. The first step is understanding that leadership is not about you. It's about them. It's about the people who look to you for guidance, whether it's your family, your team, your community, or even strangers you inspire without knowing it. A leader's greatest responsibility is not to be served, but to serve. Not to demand loyalty, but to earn it. Not to command respect, but to inspire it. Leadership is not measured by how many people follow you, but by how many lives you change along the way. But let's be clear, being a great leader is not easy. It demands sacrifice. It demands patience. It demands resilience in the face of criticism, failure, and doubt. You will be tested. You will be misunderstood. You will face moments where you feel alone, moments where it seems easier to give up than to stand tall. But it is in those moments that leadership is truly born. Because anyone can stand firm when the wind is at their back, but only true leaders keep walking when the storm is against them. So how do you behave like a great leader? You begin by mastering yourself. You cannot lead others if you cannot first lead yourself. Discipline is the foundation. Integrity is the compass. Vision is the map. And courage is the fuel. Without these, you are simply drifting. A leader is someone who wakes up with purpose, who acts with intention, and who knows that every choice they make echoes beyond themselves. If you cut corners, others will cut corners. If you let fear dictate your actions, others will learn to shrink instead of rise. But if you hold yourself to a higher standard, if you live with honesty, with courage, with relentless dedication to growth, then you set the tone for everyone around you. Understand this: people do not follow perfection, they follow authenticity. They follow leaders who are real, who admit their mistakes, who show vulnerability but never stop striving to become better. Pretending to be flawless only creates distance. Being genuine builds trust, and trust is the currency of leadership. Once you have it, people will follow you not because they have to, but because they want to. And when you lead, you must carry a vision greater than yourself. What makes leaders unforgettable is not their personal gain, but their ability to inspire others towards something bigger. You must ask yourself, what do I stand for? What am I willing to fight for? What legacy am I leaving behind? Because when you know your vision, when your actions align with it, people will feel it. They will see the fire in your eyes. They will hear the conviction in your voice. And they will know that following you is not just about reaching a goal. It's about becoming part of a movement. But a vision without action is just a dream. And that is where behavior separates great leaders from dreamers. A leader does not just talk about change, they embody it. They don't sit back and wait for others to step up. They take the first step, even if it's the hardest one. They don't hide behind excuses, they rise with solutions. Leadership is not about speeches, it's about actions that echo louder than words ever could. The truth is, people are always watching you. They watch how you handle success, and they watch even closer how you handle failure. They watch how you treat the powerful, and they watch even more how you treat the powerless. They watch how you stand when things are easy, and they watch how you walk when the road gets tough. Every single choice you make as a leader sends a message, whether you realize it or not. And the greatest leaders understand that their life is their message. So if you want to behave like a great leader, you must live each day as if someone is looking up to you, because someone always is. Maybe it's your child, maybe it's your teammate, maybe it's a stranger who sees you and thinks, if they can, maybe I can too. Leadership is not about waiting for the spotlight. Leadership is about living in such a way that even in the shadows, you are still a beacon of light for someone else. And here's the most important part: leadership begins now. Not tomorrow, not when you get the promotion, not when you feel ready. It begins the moment you decide to carry yourself differently, to raise your standards, to think beyond yourself, and to act with courage. You don't need a stage to lead, you need a decision. A decision to become the kind of person others can trust, respect, and be inspired by. That decision, repeated every single day, is what builds greatness. So as you listen to these words, I want you to ask yourself, will you rise to the challenge? Will you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start creating it? Will you hold yourself to a higher standard, even when no one is watching? Will you carry a vision greater than yourself? And will you walk the difficult path that true leadership demands? Because the world doesn't need more bosses. It doesn't need more people telling others what to do. The world needs leaders. Leaders who inspire. Leaders who uplift. Leaders who ignite hope where there is none. Leaders who prove that one voice, one choice, one person can make a difference. And that leader can be you, if you decide today to walk that path. When you think about leadership, you must understand that it is not a single act or a single decision. It is a lifestyle. It is not about moments of greatness. It is about consistency in the little things, repeated over and over, that ultimately shape the way people see you and the way they choose to follow you. The mistake many people make is believing that leadership begins when people finally recognize them, when they are finally given a title, or when they are standing in front of a crowd. But the truth is, leadership begins long before anyone notices. It begins in the quiet discipline of your own life, when no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when you have every excuse to quit, but you choose to keep moving forward. That is where the seed of leadership is planted, and only when that seed is watered daily with commitment and integrity does it grow into something that others can trust and follow. Think of the leader as a mirror. The people around you reflect what you project. If you are careless, they will be careless. If you lack energy, they will lack energy. If you speak with doubt, they will feel doubt. But if you carry yourself with conviction, if your words match your actions, if your passion burns so deeply that others feel its warmth, then people cannot help but respond to you. Influence is not forced, it is transferred. And the leader who understands this does not spend their life demanding obedience. They spend their life cultivating belief. But belief alone is not enough. A leader must balance vision with empathy. It is not enough to know where you are going. You must also understand the people you are leading. Too many who call themselves leaders fail because they try to drag people instead of guiding them. They try to command instead of inspire. They try to impose instead of uplift. A great leader listens more than they speak. They seek to understand the fears, the struggles, the dreams of their people, because only when you understand hearts can you move them. People do not follow leaders because they have to. They follow because they feel seen, heard, and valued. Leadership is not about walking in front. It is about walking with. And here is the paradox of leadership: the stronger you are, the gentler you must be. The higher you rise, the more humble you must become. Because leadership is not about you standing taller than everyone else. It is about you bending low enough to lift others up. Great leaders are never obsessed with their own spotlight. They are obsessed with helping others shine. They understand that their true legacy is not how bright their own flame burns, but how many other flames they ignite along the way. This requires selflessness, and selflessness requires courage. Because when you are a leader, you must often put aside your comfort for the greater good. You will carry burdens that others do not see. You will walk through storms while smiling, so that those behind you don't lose faith. You will take criticism so your team can keep moving forward. You will give credit away and take blame upon yourself. That is the price of leadership. And if you are not willing to pay it, you cannot claim the title of a great leader. But if you are willing, if you are bold enough to take on that responsibility, the rewards are immeasurable. Because there is no greater satisfaction than seeing someone rise higher because of you. There is no greater fulfillment than knowing your guidance sparked someone else's transformation. True leaders do not measure their success by their own achievements, but by the successes of those they lead. And when you adopt this mindset, something extraordinary happens. You stop thinking only about what you can get and begin to think about what you can give. That shift from self-centered ambition to servant-driven purpose is the heartbeat of great leadership. Another truth every aspiring leader must embrace is that leadership is not about comfort, it is about growth. And growth requires change. You cannot lead people to new places if you yourself are afraid to leave the old ones behind. Too many would-be leaders cling to the familiar, they hold on to outdated habits, and as a result, they stagnate. But leaders must be pioneers. They must have the courage to explore uncharted territory, to embrace innovation, to step boldly where others hesitate. And yes, sometimes that means failing. Sometimes that means taking risks that don't pay off. But leadership is not about perfection, it is about resilience. It is about falling, learning, adapting, and rising again with even more wisdom and strength than before. People do not admire leaders because they never fall, they admire them because they rise every time they do. The leader who hides failure will never inspire, but the leader who owns it, learns from it, and shows others how to overcome it will forever earn trust. When you behave with transparency, when you are open about your struggles, you prove that leadership is not about being untouchable. It is about being unbreakable, and that is far more powerful. So how does one cultivate this kind of strength, this kind of resilience? By embracing discipline. Discipline is the invisible backbone of every great leader. It is what allows you to stay consistent when motivation fades. It is what ensures you keep promises, meet deadlines, and live by principles even when no one else is watching. Without discipline, you cannot build trust, and without trust, you cannot lead. Discipline means you show up prepared, you show up focused, you show up ready to give your best, day after day after day. And though discipline is difficult, it breeds confidence, not only in you, but in those who follow you. When people see that you are steady, reliable, and unwavering, they begin to anchor themselves to you. That is how influence grows. But discipline alone is not enough without vision. A leader without vision is like a ship without a compass. They may move, but they will drift endlessly. Vision gives direction, it gives meaning, it gives people something to believe in beyond themselves. And this vision must be communicated with passion. People will not sacrifice for something they do not understand, and they will not endure for something that does not inspire them. A leader must paint the picture so vividly that others can see it, feel it, and want to be part of it. The power of a leader is not that they see further, it is that they help others see further too. And remember, leadership is not a performance. It is a commitment. Too often, people put on the mask of leadership when eyes are on them, only to drop it when the spotlight fades. But authenticity cannot be faked forever. People eventually see through the act. If your words and your actions are not aligned, your influence crumbles. But when you are authentic, when you live your values every single day, then leadership is not something you wear. It is something you are. That kind of authenticity builds unshakable influence because it proves that your leadership is not dependent on circumstances, it is woven into your character. Never forget that people crave hope, they crave direction, they crave someone to believe in when they cannot believe in themselves. And that is why leadership matters so deeply. Because you, through your vision, your courage, and your example, can be the spark that ignites someone's belief again. And when you do that, you are not just leading, you are transforming lives. And there is no higher calling than that. So, as you continue on this journey, do not ask, how can I make people follow me? Ask instead, how can I inspire people to rise with me? Do not focus on control, focus on empowerment. Do not measure your worth by how many serve you, measure it by how many you serve. That is the essence of behaving like a great leader, and it is available to anyone who has the courage to live it. Leadership, at its core, is about connection. It is about creating bonds so strong that people trust you not because of the position you hold, but because of the person you are. And to create those bonds, you must master something many ignore: emotional intelligence. Far too many people think leadership is about strategies, charts, and commands, but real leadership is built on the ability to connect with human beings at the level of the heart. If you cannot manage your own emotions, if you cannot empathize with the emotions of others, if you cannot remain calm when the room is filled with tension, you will not be able to inspire, motivate, or guide anyone. A leader's strength is not just in their vision, but in their ability to steady the emotions of the people they lead. Imagine walking into a room where panic is spreading, where doubt is contagious, where uncertainty is crippling the minds of everyone present. In that moment, one voice, one presence, one steady heart can shift the entire atmosphere. That is the power of a leader. Not because they had all the answers, but because they had the courage to remain calm, the wisdom to listen, and the empathy to let others feel heard before showing them the way forward. That is why great leaders are remembered, not for their control, but for their composure. To behave like a great leader, you must also understand the art of communication. Words are not just sounds, they are tools, they are bridges, they are weapons, they are medicine. A careless word from a leader can destroy trust in an instant. A thoughtful word can ignite hope in the darkest of hours. When you speak, people are not just listening to your words, they are listening to your conviction, your tone, your energy. They are asking themselves, do I believe this person believes what they're saying? Do I believe they can lead me where I want to go? Your voice, your choice of words, your authenticity all determine the answer. But leadership communication is not about speaking more. It is about speaking with purpose. Too many people drown others in noise, giving long speeches filled with empty phrases. Great leaders, however, know how to say less but mean more. They choose their words carefully, not to impress but to inspire. They speak truth, even when it's hard to hear. They are consistent, so people know their word can be trusted. And most importantly, they listen. Listening is the most underrated leadership skill because when you truly listen, people feel respected, valued, and understood. And when people feel understood, they will give you their trust in return. But let's go deeper. Leadership is also about the example you set in silence. People watch more than they listen. They study your body language, your habits, your reactions. They see how you treat others when you have nothing to gain. They notice how you respond when everything seems to be falling apart. Leadership is not just about the speeches you make in front of hundreds. It is about the moments when you think no one notices, yet someone always does. It is in those moments that you reveal who you truly are. And who you are in private eventually echoes loudly in public. That is why integrity is non-negotiable. Without it, your influence will eventually collapse. So if you want to behave like a great leader, you must ask yourself daily, am I someone I would follow? Would I trust my own words if they came from someone else? Would I respect the way I carry myself if I were looking from the outside? Because leadership is not about demanding from others what you yourself are not willing to give. It is about holding yourself to the standard you expect from them. And when you do, people do not just follow your words, they follow your life. Another element of leadership that cannot be ignored is vision under pressure. It is easy to talk about the future when everything is going well, but when crisis comes, when chaos hits, when the path forward seems uncertain, that is when vision is tested. A great leader does not abandon the vision when obstacles appear. They adjust their strategy. But they never lose sight of the destination. They reassure their people that even if the road is difficult, the destination is still worth reaching. And in doing so, they give courage to those who are afraid. A leader is like a lighthouse in a storm, not because they stop the storm, but because they give direction through it. And yet, leadership is not about perfection. Too often, people disqualify themselves because they think leaders must be flawless, untouchable, almost superhuman. But that is not true. In fact, the opposite is true. Great leaders are human enough to admit mistakes, strong enough to apologize, wise enough to learn, and humble enough to grow. When you pretend to be perfect, you build walls between yourself and those you lead. But when you show authenticity, when you admit that you too are learning, when you demonstrate humility, you build bridges. And those bridges are far stronger than the illusion of perfection. Leadership is also about accountability. You cannot ask for loyalty and commitment from others if you are not willing to hold yourself accountable to the same standard. A leader does not blame others when things go wrong. They take responsibility. A leader does not shift excuses. They own the problem and work toward the solution. Accountability creates respect, and respect builds authority. When people know you take responsibility for outcomes, both good and bad, they will trust your guidance even more. But leadership is not just about guiding. It is about creating leaders in others. The greatest leaders do not seek to build followers. They seek to build more leaders. They recognize that their legacy is not measured in how many people stood behind them, but in how many people went forward because of them. If you hoard knowledge, power, and opportunity for yourself, you limit the impact of your leadership. But if you empower others, if you share wisdom, if you create opportunities for growth, your influence multiplies far beyond yourself. That is how true leaders leave a mark that lasts for generations. And do not underestimate the power of resilience, because leadership will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine. You will be doubted. You will be criticized. You will be betrayed. There will be days when the weight feels unbearable, when you wonder if the fight is even worth it. But a leader understands that pain is part of the process, that challenges are part of the calling. A leader does not break under pressure. They rise because of it. The greatest leaders in history did not have smooth roads, they had battles. And it was in those battles that their strength was revealed. So if you truly desire to become a great leader, do not run from challenges, embrace them. Do not fear failure, learn from it. Do not avoid responsibility, carry it. And most importantly, do not forget that leadership is not about how far you can go alone, but how far you can take others with you. Because at the end of the day, leadership is not a solo journey. It is a shared path where your courage inspires someone else's, where your persistence fuels another's endurance, where your example lights another's fire. And when you do that, you have not just behaved like a leader, you have become one. Leadership is not for the faint of heart. It is not for those who seek comfort, nor for those who are paralyzed by fear. At the center of every great leader lies one trait that separates them from the rest: courage. Without courage, there can be no leadership, because the very essence of leading means stepping into the unknown, making decisions without full certainty, and taking risks that others would rather avoid. People look to leaders because leaders are willing to go first. They are willing to take the arrows. They are willing to shoulder the weight when no one else will. And that courage becomes contagious. When others see you step boldly into the fire, they find the strength to do the same. But courage is not the absence of fear. A leader feels fear just as anyone else does. The difference is that they refuse to let fear control them. They understand that fear is simply a sign that something important is at stake, and rather than retreating, they lean in. Courage is the decision to move forward in spite of fear, in spite of doubt, in spite of uncertainty. And when you practice courage daily, by speaking truth, by standing firm in your values, by making hard choices, you create a culture where others feel empowered to be courageous as well. Decision-making is another critical test of leadership. Leaders are constantly faced with choices, some small, others monumental. And while no one can predict the future with absolute certainty, great leaders make decisions with clarity, with conviction, and with accountability. They do not get stuck in endless hesitation, because hesitation breeds confusion, and confusion destroys confidence. A leader gathers the information they weigh the consequences, and then they decide. Even if the decision later proves imperfect, people respect decisive action far more than endless waiting. But decision-making also demands humility, because leadership is not about always being right. It is about always being responsible. A leader who refuses to admit mistakes will eventually lose trust. But a leader who has the humility to say, "I was wrong and here is how we will correct it," gains far more respect than the one who pretends to be flawless. Humility keeps a leader grounded. It reminds them that leadership is not about ego, but about service. It keeps them open to learning, open to feedback, and open to growth. And growth is essential, because the moment a leader stops growing, their ability to lead begins to wither. True leadership is also about presence. Not just physical presence, but emotional presence. It is about showing up fully, giving people your attention, your focus, your energy. Too many people call themselves leaders yet are absent when it matters most. They hide when challenges come. They disappear when hard conversations are needed. They avoid the weight of responsibility. But a great leader shows up. They are present in the victories and present in the struggles. They celebrate with their people when success is achieved, and they stand beside them when the road is difficult. Presence builds trust, because it proves that you are not only there when things are good, you are there when things are tough. And remember this: leadership is not about being served, it is about serving. The greatest leaders are those who put the needs of their people above their own comfort. They look for ways to support, to empower, to lift others. They understand that authority is not a privilege to be exploited, but a responsibility to be honored. And when you lead with a servant's heart, people respond with loyalty that cannot be bought or forced, because they see that you are not just in it for yourself, you are in it for them. One of the greatest tests of a leader's character is how they handle power. Power has a way of revealing who you really are. Some, when given authority, become arrogant, controlling, and self-serving. But true leaders use power to create opportunities, not to control them. They use power to open doors for others, not to shut them. They use power to protect, not to exploit. And because of this, their influence grows far beyond their official authority. People follow them not because they have to, but because they want to. But leadership is not just about managing the present. It is about creating the future. Great leaders are always thinking beyond themselves. They ask, what kind of world am I helping to create? What kind of culture am I building? What kind of legacy will I leave? They understand that their impact is not measured only by what they achieve in their lifetime, but by what continues after they are gone. That is why they invest in people. That is why they teach, mentor, and develop others. Because they know that the highest calling of leadership is not to be remembered for your own success, but to be remembered for how many others you helped succeed. Legacy is not built in a single moment. It is built in the accumulation of small, consistent actions repeated over years that leave a mark on the hearts of others. Every conversation you have, every decision you make, every act of kindness or courage, it all adds up. And when people look back, they will not remember the awards you won or the titles you held as much as they will remember how you made them feel, how you inspired them, how you helped them believe in themselves. That is the true legacy of leadership. And make no mistake, leadership is influence, but influence carries weight. Every word you say, every action you take has the power to lift someone higher or pull them down. That is why great leaders are intentional. They are intentional with their energy, intentional with their words, intentional with their choices. They do not live carelessly because they know others are watching. And when others see your consistency, your integrity, your courage, they begin to internalize it. Without even realizing it, your life becomes a roadmap for theirs. Leadership also requires vision that stretches beyond the ordinary. Too many settle for being average, for leading within the limits of what is safe. But great leaders are not afraid to dream bigger, to see possibilities where others see obstacles, to imagine a future that is greater than the present. And when they communicate that vision with clarity, they ignite hope in others. Hope is the fuel of progress. People can endure hardship, they can push through difficulties, as long as they believe there is something worth fighting for on the other side. A leader's vision gives them that belief. But here's the reality: vision will always attract resistance. The moment you stand for something greater, the critics will appear. The doubters will speak. The opposition will rise. And this is where courage, resilience, and conviction matter most. Because if you abandon your vision at the first sign of resistance, you were never leading, you were merely managing. Great leaders understand that resistance is part of the process. They do not back down from it, they rise above it. They do not let negativity dictate their direction. Instead, they keep moving, knowing that if the vision is strong enough, if the purpose is real enough, it will withstand the storms. A true leader is also a builder of culture. Culture is the invisible force that shapes how people think, act, and interact. And whether you realize it or not, as a leader, you are creating culture every day. If you tolerate laziness, you create a culture of mediocrity. If you reward excellence, you create a culture of greatness. If you allow dishonesty, you create a culture of distrust. But if you model integrity, courage, and respect, you create a culture that inspires others to live by the same values. Culture outlasts charisma. People may forget a speech, but they will never forget the environment you built. So if you desire to behave like a great leader, pay attention not just to what you say, but to the culture you are shaping. Because culture will carry your vision further than any single act ever could. And once that culture takes root, it becomes a force that continues to grow even when you are not present. That is the mark of leadership that lasts. Ultimately, leadership is not about climbing the ladder of success for yourself. It is about building ladders for others to climb. It is about making the path easier for the next generation. It is about leaving behind more than you took. And if you can do that, if you can walk with courage, humility, vision, and service, then you will not only behave like a great leader, you will become one. Leadership at its deepest level is not about what you accomplish for yourself, but about what you awaken in others. The world does not remember leaders simply because they built companies or commanded armies. It remembers them because they stirred the human spirit, because they inspired people to believe in something greater than themselves, because they created movements that outlived them. And that is the challenge placed before you, not just to lead with skill, but to lead with soul. A great leader is resilient because life will not hand you an easy path. You will face betrayal. You will face loss. You will face moments when the very people you worked hardest for may not understand you, may even turn against you. But resilience is what keeps you moving even when your heart is heavy. It is what allows you to rise from failure without bitterness, to endure hardship without losing hope, to face defeat without giving up. Resilience is not about pretending the pain isn't real. It is about refusing to let that pain define your destiny. And every time you rise, every time you keep going despite the setbacks, you show those who follow you what true strength looks like. Adaptability is equally vital. The world changes, circumstances shift, and challenges appear that you could never have predicted. The leader who clings rigidly to old ways, who refuses to adjust, who fears innovation will be left behind. But the leader who embraces change, who sees uncertainty not as a threat but as an opportunity, becomes unstoppable. Adaptability does not mean compromising your values. It means finding new ways to express them. It means being flexible in strategy while unshakable in principle. It means recognizing that while the road may change, the destination does not. And when your people see that you can bend without breaking, they gain confidence that they can survive change too. Another hallmark of great leadership is authenticity. People can sense when you are faking. They can feel when your words are empty or when your actions are inconsistent. Authentic leaders live their truth. They do not pretend to be something they are not. They are honest about their struggles, honest about their values, honest about their journey. Authenticity creates trust, and trust is the foundation of influence. When people believe in your sincerity, they will stand with you through uncertainty. They will forgive your mistakes. They will believe in your vision because they know you are not hiding behind a mask. You are showing them your real self. And it is through authenticity that leaders unlock inspiration. Inspiration is not about grand speeches or dramatic gestures. It is about being a living example of what you teach. You cannot tell people to be disciplined if you live recklessly. You cannot tell people to be brave if you cower in fear. You cannot tell people to serve others if you only serve yourself. Inspiration is born when people see consistency between your words and your actions, between your message and your life. When they see that alignment, they begin to believe that they too can live by those values. And that belief is powerful because once people believe in themselves, there is no limit to what they can achieve. But inspiration is also about vision. Leaders must be able to look at what is and see what could be. They must be able to look at brokenness and see potential, to look at chaos and see opportunity, to look at ordinary people and see extraordinary possibility. And then they must be able to communicate that vision so powerfully that others begin to see it too. People follow leaders not because of where they are, but because of where they believe they can go with them. If you can paint a picture of the future so vivid, so compelling, so full of hope, people will walk with you through storms just to reach it. But never forget the vision must always be bigger than you. If your leadership is only about advancing yourself, your influence will be shallow and temporary. But if your vision is about lifting others, about making their lives better, about creating a future that outlasts you, then your leadership becomes timeless. Selfish ambition dies with you. Selfless vision lives long after you are gone. And here lies another truth: leadership requires sacrifice. To lead is to give more than you take, to carry more than you ask others to carry, to set aside your own comfort for the greater good. It means staying late when others go home. It means taking responsibility when others shift blame. It means holding yourself accountable even when no one is watching. Sacrifice is the weight that balances the power of leadership. Without it, leadership becomes arrogance. With it, leadership becomes service. And people always respond to service with loyalty and respect. But do not confuse sacrifice with weakness. A leader is not weak for showing compassion, for extending kindness, for admitting mistakes. In fact, these are signs of strength. It takes far more courage to forgive than to retaliate, far more strength to admit wrong than to pretend to be perfect, far more power to lift others up than to push them down. True leadership is not loud dominance. It is quiet strength. It is the strength that does not need to shout because its presence is enough. The strength that does not need to control because its influence is undeniable. Another mark of leadership is consistency. Anyone can lead when the spotlight is on, but a true leader leads even when no one notices. They are consistent in character, consistent in discipline, consistent in values. Consistency creates reliability, and reliability creates trust. And trust, once again, is everything. Without trust, leadership crumbles. With trust, leadership flourishes. So if you want to be a great leader, do not ask yourself what you can do once to impress people. Ask yourself what you can do daily to build their faith in you. Now let us talk about something often ignored: the emotional burden of leadership. To lead others means carrying not just your own challenges, but theirs as well. It means listening to fears, absorbing doubts, facing criticism, and still moving forward with strength. It means putting on a brave face so that others don't lose hope, even when inside you are battling your own struggles. Leadership can be lonely because the weight of responsibility is heavy. But loneliness is not a curse. It is proof that you are walking a road few are willing to walk. And in that loneliness, you discover the depth of your resilience, the power of your vision, and the strength of your calling. But you are never truly alone. Because leadership is not about walking in front and leaving everyone behind. It is about walking together. You may carry the heaviest weight, but you also have the greatest privilege, the privilege of watching others grow because of your guidance. And every time you see someone rise higher, every time you see someone believe in themselves because you believed in them first, every time you see someone step into their own leadership because of your example, you realize the burden is worth it. That is the reward of leadership, not money, not fame, not recognition. The true reward is impact, the knowledge that you have left people better than you found them, that you have given them strength they didn't know they had, that you have changed lives in ways that cannot be measured by numbers. That is why true leaders are remembered, not because they were the loudest voice in the room, but because they were the voice that gave others courage. Not because they stood on the tallest mountain, but because they built a bridge for others to climb it too. So if you want to behave like a great leader, do not focus on control, focus on empowerment. Do not focus on titles, focus on trust. Do not focus on being important, focus on being impactful. Because at the end of the day, greatness in leadership is not measured by how high you stand, but by how many you lift with you as you climb. Leadership is never just about the present moment. It is about the mark you leave behind. The greatest leaders of history are not remembered simply for what they achieved while they were alive, but for the legacies they left that continued to influence generations after them. That is the true power of leadership, to create ripples that extend far beyond your own reach, to plant seeds that continue to grow long after you are gone. If you want to be a great leader, you must not only think about today, you must also think about tomorrow. Your legacy is being written every single day. It is not something that begins when you die or when you retire. It begins with the choices you make in this very moment. Every word you speak, every action you take, every principle you stand by is shaping the story that people will tell about you. And the question you must ask yourself is this: what story do I want them to tell? Do you want them to remember you as someone who sought power only for yourself, or as someone who used power to lift others higher? Do you want them to remember you as someone who inspired fear, or as someone who inspired hope? Do you want them to remember you as someone who lived for their own gain, or as someone who gave so much that the world could not help but remember? A leader's legacy is not measured in wealth or possessions, but in the lives they impact. Money fades, titles fade, applause fades, but the way you make people feel, the way you empower them, the way you help them believe in themselves, those things endure. People may not remember your exact words, but they will always remember the courage you gave them, the strength you helped them find, the confidence you built within them. And that is why legacy is not created in one grand act. It is built through daily consistency, through repeated actions of integrity, service, and vision. But legacy also requires clarity of purpose. Great leaders know where they are going, and more importantly, they know why they are going there. Purpose fuels leadership. Without purpose, you may gain followers for a time, but they will drift away because there is no deeper reason to remain. Purpose is what gives leadership longevity. Purpose is what transforms a movement from temporary enthusiasm into lasting impact. And the truth is this: people are not hungry for another title holder. They are hungry for someone who believes in something so strongly that they make others believe too. Purpose-driven leadership is what sustains influence over a lifetime. Because the road of leadership is not always lined with applause. There will be seasons when your vision is doubted, when your ideas are resisted, when your motives are questioned. And if your leadership is only fueled by approval, you will quit when the criticism comes. But if your leadership is fueled by purpose, nothing can stop you. The storms may shake you, the critics may attack you, the hardships may test you, but purpose will keep you standing. Purpose will keep you fighting. Purpose will keep you believing when no one else does. But legacy is not only about holding on to purpose, it is about transferring it. The greatest leaders are not those who do everything themselves, but those who create more leaders. They understand that their influence is multiplied when others carry the torch forward. They are not threatened by the rise of others. They celebrate it. They are not afraid of being replaced. They are committed to being reproduced, because they know that leadership is not about being the only one. It is about being the first of many. And when you live this way, your legacy cannot be destroyed because it is carried on by those you inspired, mentored, and empowered. Leadership that lasts is also leadership that evolves. Legacy does not mean clinging to the past. It means building a foundation for the future. The world will continue to change after you are gone, and true leaders understand this. They do not try to freeze time, they try to prepare people. They equip their followers with values that will guide them no matter what circumstances arise. They teach principles that remain relevant even when the world looks different. And this is how a leader ensures their influence outlives them, not by controlling everything, but by instilling in others the wisdom and strength to lead themselves. But let us be honest, legacy is not easy. It requires sacrifice. It requires patience. It requires faith in things you may never see with your own eyes. Many of the greatest leaders never lived to witness the full fruits of their labor. They planted seeds, watered them, nurtured them, but the harvest came after they were gone. And yet they believed. They believed so deeply in the cause, in the vision, in the future, that they gave everything even without guarantees. That is true leadership. It is giving your all not because you will be celebrated, but because it is right. Think about it, the greatest monuments to leadership are not statues or buildings, but changed lives. A statue may crumble, a building may collapse, but the human spirit, once awakened, continues to burn. And if your leadership lights that fire in others, your influence can never die. Sustaining influence over a lifetime also requires humility. It is easy for leaders to begin believing they are invincible, that they are the center of everything, that without them the world would fall apart. But humility reminds you that leadership is not about you. It is about service. It reminds you that you are not bigger than the mission. You are simply entrusted with it for a time. It reminds you that no matter how high you climb, you are still human, and it is your humanity that connects you to the people you lead. Humility keeps your leadership grounded, authentic, and relatable. And in the end, humility ensures that your legacy is remembered with love rather than resentment. Another truth about legacy is this: it is shaped not in the big stages of life, but in the small, hidden moments. People will remember how you treated them when no one else was watching. They will remember how you responded when they failed. They will remember whether you showed kindness when you had nothing to gain. Legacy is built in the private moments that never make the headlines. Because in those moments, people see your character, and character is the foundation of lasting influence. So ask yourself today, if your leadership journey ended tomorrow, what would your legacy be? Would people say you inspired them? Would they say you lifted them? Would they say you made them better? Or would they say you only cared about yourself? That is the mirror every leader must face. Because at the end of the road, your legacy is not written by you. It is written by those you impacted. Great leaders live with this awareness every day. They do not wait until the end to think about their legacy. They shape it now through every word, every decision, every act of service. They live with intention, knowing that time is limited, that opportunities are fleeting, that the chance to impact lives may never come again. And so they give their all in the moment, because they know the moment may never return. This is how leaders sustain influence across a lifetime, not through force, but through vision, not through manipulation, but through inspiration, not through ego, but through humility, not through greed, but through service. And if you live and lead this way, your life becomes more than just your own. It becomes a spark that ignites countless others, a story that others will tell long after you are gone, a light that continues to shine even in your absence. That is the highest calling of leadership: to live so fully, to give so selflessly, to believe so passionately that your influence cannot be buried with you, that your vision lives on in the people you touched, that your principles live on in the leaders you raised, that your fire lives on in the movement you built. That is the kind of leadership the world desperately needs. And that is the kind of leader you are capable of becoming. There comes a moment in every life when you have to decide whether you will simply exist or whether you will truly lead. That moment might not come with fanfare. It might not arrive with applause. In fact, it may come quietly in a room where no one is watching, when you are staring at yourself in the mirror and asking, am I living with courage or am I living with fear? That is the crossroads of leadership, because every great leader begins with a decision. The decision to step forward when it would be easier to hide. The decision to take responsibility when it would be easier to blame. The decision to dream big when it would be safer to settle small. The decision to rise. Understand, this leadership is not a title, and it is not reserved for a chosen few. Leadership is a mindset. It is a choice. It is available to anyone who is willing to pay the price of discipline, sacrifice, and vision. And the truth is, the world is not waiting for more followers. It is crying out for leaders, leaders in homes, leaders in communities, leaders in classrooms, leaders in workplaces, leaders in nations, leaders who are willing to do more than talk about change, leaders who are willing to be the change. And that leader can be you. Yes, you. Do not underestimate your influence. Do not downplay your potential. Do not convince yourself that leadership belongs to someone else, someone smarter, richer, stronger, or more powerful. Leadership belongs to those who step up. Leadership belongs to those who refuse to let fear dictate their destiny. Leadership belongs to those who see injustice and will not stay silent, those who see opportunities and will not stay still, those who see brokenness and will not stay uninvolved. Leadership is not about waiting for permission. It is about taking responsibility. But let's be real, leadership is hard. It is messy. It is uncomfortable. It will cost you sleep. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you convenience. Because to lead is to step into storms others avoid. To lead is to carry weight others drop. To lead is to walk into the unknown, armed only with faith, vision, and courage. But let me tell you this, though leadership is costly, the reward is far greater. Because nothing compares to the moment when you see lives changed because you chose to rise. Nothing compares to watching someone step into their greatness because you believed in them first. Nothing compares to knowing that because you had the courage to lead, the world will never be the same again. So how do you behave like a great leader? You believe when others doubt. You stand when others fall. You serve when others demand. You rise when others shrink. You become the living example of what you want others to see. Leadership is not about pointing the way. It is about walking the way. It is about being the kind of person who doesn't just tell people what to do, but shows them how to do it through action, through consistency, through relentless commitment. And here's the truth that most people ignore. You don't need to be perfect to be a leader. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be flawless or fearless. You just need to be willing to grow, willing to learn, willing to take risks, willing to get back up after failure, willing to keep moving forward when everything inside of you screams to stop. Great leaders are not born with superhuman strength. They are forged in fire. They are built through struggle, through mistakes, through persistence, through the decision to keep going when quitting looked easier. This is why leadership is not for the faint of heart. It demands resilience. It demands courage. It demands vision. But more than anything, it demands love, love for people, love for truth. Love for a future that doesn't yet exist but burns so brightly in your imagination that you are willing to sacrifice everything to bring it to life. That love is what makes people follow you. Because people don't just follow skill, they follow heart. They don't just follow knowledge, they follow passion. They don't just follow words, they follow belief. And that is why the call to leadership is the highest call you can answer. Because when you choose to lead, you are not just changing your own life, you are shaping the destiny of everyone who looks to you. Your words will echo in the hearts of those you inspire. Your actions will ripple through the lives of those you touch. Your example will set a standard for those who rise after you. And one day, when people tell the story of their own success, they may whisper your name as the one who believed in them, the one who showed them what was possible, the one who gave them the courage to take their first step. Do not waste that chance. Do not shrink back from that calling. Do not let fear convince you that you are not ready. You are ready the moment you decide to be. You are ready the moment you stop waiting and start acting. You are ready the moment you stop doubting and start believing. Leadership is not about waiting for the perfect time. It is about making the time perfect by stepping into it fully, boldly, unapologetically. And when you lead, lead with conviction, speak with fire, act with courage, stand with integrity, and love with everything you have. Because the world has enough skeptics, enough critics, enough cynics who can only point out problems. What the world needs, what the world is desperate for, are leaders who carry solutions, who bring hope, who radiate strength, who breathe life into others with their vision. So I ask you now, what kind of leader will you be? Will you be the leader who waits for others to act, or the leader who steps first? Will you be the leader who craves power, or the leader who empowers others? Will you be the leader who talks about change, or the leader who becomes the change? Will you be the leader who fades into history unnoticed, or the leader whose influence lives on long after you are gone? This is your callment. This is your time. Do not let it pass you by. You have everything it takes within you: strength, vision, passion, courage. All you need is to decide that from this day forward. You will live like a leader, you will act like a leader, you will believe like a leader, because the world is waiting. And the truth is, the world does not need another follower, the world needs you. So rise. Rise with courage, rise with vision, rise with love, rise and lead. Lead in your family, lead in your community, lead in your work, lead in your life. Lead not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Lead not because you are perfect, but because you are willing. Lead not because the world will reward you, but because the world will remember you. And when your story is told, let it not be said that you played small. Let it not be said that you settled for comfort. Let it not be said that you hid from your calling. Let it be said that you rose, that you fought, that you believed, that you led. Let it be said that because you lived, the world was brighter, stronger, better. This is leadership. This is greatness. This is your destiny. Step into it, claim it, live it, and never look back.